Let's bring in right now Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna of California. He's a member of the Armed Services Committee and is pushing for curbs on the presidential war powers. Congressman, on that topic, all I can say is the queue is very, very long. I remember Tom Campbell, a Republican, as well as other Democrats, complaining about Bill Clinton and his attacks on Kosovo and not getting authorization from Congress. Obviously, every president, it seems, including I remember Barack Obama in 2011 and the attacks on Libya, not getting congressional authority. And what's so interesting about this is, you might say, oh, well, if it's a Republican doing it, only Democrats are angry. If it's Democrat doing it, only Republicans are angry. In every single case, there seem to be members on both sides coming together and saying, hey, wait a second, you've got to come to Congress first before taking military action. Is that the case here as well?
Joe, you're absolutely right. And presidents of both parties have violated the War Powers Act in Libya, in Yemen, now in Iran. And I came together with Thomas Massie to say you have to come to Congress. I think it made a difference. Look, I'm glad and relieved that we've gotten a ceasefire. I hope it holds. I spoke to Thomas Massie last night, and we said we're going to wait and see, and it may be moot in terms of getting a vote now on the War Powers resolution. But I think there are two things to realize here. One, this is the deepest anger that some of the MAGA base has had at Donald Trump. I mean, he really ran saying he was going to have no more wars, no strikes. You've got people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, Thomas Massie saying, look, this is not what we were promised. And Donald Trump was angry. I mean, he's threatening Thomas Massie, putting his top political people there because he knows that the MAGA base was upset. And I think it's good that he actually listened to them, and he's now gotten a ceasefire. Thankfully, he's done that. The question, though, is now what next? I mean, we've seen in this country these mission-accomplished moments. The question is, what's going to happen with the Iranian nuclear material that even J.D. Vance says they probably still have? They may make it covert. And the question is, are they going to kick out the inspectors? I hope the president is engaged in the hard work of diplomacy. It's much easier to start wars than to end them and engage in actually diplomacy to prevent Iran from getting the bomb.
Congressman, I wonder if the U.S. bombing in Iran turns out to be a one-off, which is what we know President Trump hopes it will be. And if it, in fact, prompts this new optimism about reaching a more peaceful situation in the Middle East than we've seen in some time, does that make it harder for you to press your case on that he should have come to Congress in compliance with the War Powers Act?
Not at all. Look, I was supporting President Trump when he was engaged in diplomacy. The reality is that Obama had a deal with the JCPOA. Tony Blinken lays it out, actually, in the New York Times. And the deal said that Iran couldn't enrich more than 5%, and that we had at least 1 year in terms of being notified if they got ever close to the bomb. And then Donald Trump came and he ripped that deal up in 2018. Many of us said, let's get into that negotiation. Had he come to Congress, I think he would have been forced to engage in a negotiation. Now he's going to have to engage in that negotiation anyway. And I think that it's important that he did hear Congress. It's because Massie, myself, and other members of Congress started speaking up, and the MAGA base and the left spoke up, that Trump turned away from the neocons and actually did get the ceasefire.
So, Congressman, on a related matter, we've seen the president apply real pressure here on Israel and Iran. And I know you have your objections to some of his methods, but perhaps a ceasefire will hold. My question to you is, should he be using similar pressure, the weight, of his office for other global conflicts, perhaps the situation in Gaza? Would you like to see him take a similar tough tact to see what we've seen in Ukraine?
Absolutely. Look, I'm glad that he's pressuring both Iran and Benjamin Netanyahu not to have escalation of this conflict. I hope he will keep to, again, his campaign promise and bring the war to Gaza to an end. And he has the authority to do that. We've given $14 billion of sales to Netanyahu since he's been president. Hopefully he can tell Netanyahu, end the war in Gaza. And then let's get Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Palestine involved in having a non-Hamas government. in Palestine. Let's expand the Abraham Accords, something that I supported, actually, Jared Kushner and others when they did it in the first term. And I hope he will also now stand with Zelensky against Russia's invasion. So, look, he's the American president. I didn't support him. I won his success. I'm glad that he got a ceasefire. But the painstaking work actually begins now, because it's the diplomacy that's going to prevent Iran from getting a bomb and actually end the war in Gaza.
Right. Congressman, let's change topics since we have you here. And by the way, we'd love to have you back. A lot more to talk about. The next topic I'm going to bring up, that is AI. Jim VandeHei has been on several times. I'm sure you've seen the reporting of the work that Jim and Mike Allen and Axios has done regarding the challenges, the threats from AI. They did an extensive report about how white-collar jobs are going to be decimated by the rise of AI. And then they followed up about something a bit more significant, and that is how the very people that are at the heart of the AI revolution put at the risk of AI eventually wiping out humanity at like 10-20%. Not insignificant. There are a lot of Americans who are very concerned about the fact that the government does not have a better way to track AI developments. What, as the member who represents Silicon Valley, what do you think the best approach is? What do you think the best practices are to not only save jobs, but also save us against even graver threats in the future from AI?
Well, Joe, you identified precisely the two biggest challenges, jobs and also our safety and security. Let's talk about jobs very briefly first. You know what the most startling statistic in this country is? College graduates between the ages of 21 to 29 have a 15% unemployment rate. That could go up to 30% with AI. By the way, those who have trade school, vocational education, it's only 2%. So the question is, what are we going to do to make sure that we have jobs for young people, particularly in entry-level jobs? I think we have to have tax incentives and to hire them, to create apprenticeships. We may want to create a future workforce administration so some people can come in actually to government to have those jobs. But we need a whole strategy about what we're going to do with AI. The second thing is the safety. And here you have bipartisan concern with Marjorie Taylor Greene, myself and others with this bill, which would basically ban any regulation for 10 years in states. They could not regulate AI. That is a disaster. It would prevent states from protecting kids from online algorithms, something, Joe, I know you're very concerned about, protecting truck drivers. The first thing we need to do is allow states to regulate it. Ultimately, I think we need a federal agency to regulate and have AI be safe.
All right. Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna of California, thank you so much.